video for the Boston Tea Party. And for this video, I will be reading. I will not be highlighting the answers to all the questions, but as you can see on your screen here, I have placed the numbers for the questions alongside each paragraph. So that will give you a good idea of where to find the answers as they come up in the reading. And I will prompt you to pause the reading, pause the video, so that you can highlight those questions as they come up. So let's start here. The Boston Tea Party. Setting the scene. One night in July 1774, John Adams stopped at a tavern in eastern Massachusetts. After riding for more than 30 miles, he was hot and dusty, and his body ached with fatigue. Adams asked the innkeeper for a cup of tea. The innkeeper, however, refused his request. She did not serve tea, she informed him. He would have to drink coffee instead. Adams later praised the innkeeper's conduct. In a letter to his wife Abigail, he wrote that tea must be given up by all colonists. He promised to break himself of the habit as soon as possible. Why did colonists like John Adams give up tea? The answer was taxes. When Parliament decided to enforce a tea tax in 1773, a new crisis exploded. This time, colonists began to think the unthinkable. Perhaps the time had come to reject British rule and declare independence. So you'll want to pause the video and look for the answer to question 1. What action did Parliament take that caused a new crisis to explode in the colonies? Now moving on to the next section, uproar over tea. Tea was tremendously popular in the colonies. By 1770, at least 1 million Americans brewed tea twice a day. People would rather go without their dinners than without a dish of tea, a visitor to the colonies noted. Most tea was brought to the colonies by the British East India Company. The company bought tea in southern Asia and sold it to colonial tea merchants. The merchants then sold the tea to the colonists. To make a profit, the merchants sold the tea at a higher price than they had paid for it. So you'll be looking for the answer to question 2. Who brought most of the tea to the colonies? In the 1770s, however, the British East India Company found itself in deep financial trouble. More than 15 million pounds of its tea sat unsold in British warehouses. Britain had kept a tax on tea as a symbol of its right to tax the colonies. The tax was a small one, but colonists resented it. They refused to buy English tea. So you'll be looking for number 3. Why did Britain keep the tax on tea? Pause the video, highlight the answer to question 3. Parliament tried to help the East India Company by passing the Tea Act of 1773. The act let the company bypass the tea merchants and sell directly to colonists. Although colonists would still have to pay the tea tax, they would not have to pay the higher price charged by tea merchants. As a result, the tea itself would cost less than ever before. So question 5, what effect did this have on the price of tea? To the surprise of Parliament, colonists protested the Tea Act. The tea merchants were angry because they had been cut out of the tea trade. If Parliament ruined tea merchants today, they warned, what would prevent it from turning on other businesses tomorrow? Even tea drinkers, who would have benefited from the law, scorned the Tea Act. They believed that it was a British trick to make them accept Parliament's right to tax the colonies. So please pause the video. If you didn't answer question 5, you'll be looking for question 5. And then in this paragraph, question 6. Why were tea merchants angry with this new law? And question 7. In this paragraph, why were average citizens who drank tea upset with the law? Next section, a new boycott. Once again, colonists responded to the new tax with a boycott. One colonial newspaper warned, "Do not suffer yourself to sip the accursed dutied stuff, for if you do, the devil will immediately enter into you, and you will instantly become a traitor to your country." Daughters of Liberty and other women led the boycott. They served coffee or made Liberty tea from raspberry leaves. At some ports, Sons of Liberty enforced the boycott by keeping the British East India Company from unloading cargoes of tea. So you're looking for question 8. What did the Daughters of Liberty and the Sons of Liberty do to protest the Tea Act? By the way, please make sure you're numbering, not just highlighting, but please follow my numbering. Next section, the Boston Tea Party. 3 ships loaded with tea reached Boston Harbor in late November 1773. The colonial governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, insisted that they unload their cargo as usual. Sam Adams and the Sons of Liberty had other plans. On the night of December 16th, they met in Old South Church. They sent a message to the governor demanding that the ships leave the harbor. When the governor rejected the demand, Adams stood up and declared, "This meeting can do nothing further to save the country." Adams' words seemed to be a signal. As if on cue, a group of men burst into the meeting house. Dressed like Mohawk Indians, they waved hatchets in the air. From the gallery above, voices cried, "Boston Harbor, a teapot tonight! The Mohawks are come!" The disguised colonists left the meeting house and headed for the harbor. Others joined them on the way. In the cold, crisp night, under a nearly full moon, the men boarded the ships, split open the tea chests, and dumped the tea into the harbor. By 10 p.m., the Boston Tea Party, as it was later called, was over, but its effects would be felt for a long time to come. So question 9 is, what did the Boston colonists do when the governor refused to send the ships that were carrying tea back to England? And for some reason, this question is a hard one for kids because there's a lot going on from the meeting all the way down to the harbor here. But really what we're looking for is they destroyed the tea. They split open the tea chests. Whoops, I meant that to be a highlighter. Let me fix that. They split open the tea chests and they dumped all the tea into the harbor. And this was called the Boston Tea Party. So there's your answer for question 9. Next section, punishing Boston. The British were outraged by what they saw as Boston's lawless behavior. In 1774, Parliament, encouraged by King George III, acted to punish Massachusetts. Colonists called the 4 laws they passed the Intolerable Acts because they were so harsh. First, Parliament shut down the port of Boston. No ship could enter or leave the harbor, not even a small boat. The harbor would remain closed until the colonists paid for the tea. Second, Parliament forbade Massachusetts colonists to hold town meetings more than once a year without the government's permission. In the past, colonists had called town meetings whenever they wished. Third, Parliament provided for customs officers and other officials charged with major crimes to be tried in Britain instead of in Massachusetts. Colonists protested that a dishonest official could break the law in the colonies and avoid punishment by being tried where no evidence can pursue him. Fourth, Parliament passed a new quartering act. No longer would redcoats camp in tents on Boston Common. Instead, British commanders could force citizens to house troops in their homes. All right, and I think we probably need to go back here and find the answer to number 10. What was the name of the 4 laws passed to punish Massachusetts? That should be an easy one because it's in bold type. And then question 11, what did each of these laws do? So I'm going to have you highlight what the laws did, but I want to point out that the 4 laws are each listed here: first, second, third, fourth. So there were 4 parts to these laws. What did each of those 4 parts do? You will need to highlight that. Next section. Other colonies support Boston. The committees of correspondence spread news of the intolerable acts. They warned that the people of Boston faced hunger while their port was closed. People from other colonies responded quickly. Carts rolled into the city with rice from South Carolina, corn from Virginia, and flour from Pennsylvania. In the Virginia Assembly, a young lawyer named Thomas Jefferson suggested that a day be set aside to mark the shame of the intolerable acts. The royal governor of Virginia rejected the idea and dismissed the assembly. The colonists went ahead anyways. On June 1st, 1774, church bells tolled slowly. Merchants closed their shops. Many colonists prayed and fasted all day long. So let's pause and highlight the answer to number 12, which will be in this section. How did people from other colonies help the people of Boston? All right, continuing. In September 1774, colonial leaders called a meeting in Philadelphia. Delegates from 12 colonies gathered in what became known as the First Continental Congress. Only Georgia did not send delegates. So question 13, what was the name of the meeting held between delegates of the colonies in September of 1774? Please highlight that, and then you can unpause the video. Next section. After much debate, the delegates passed a resolution backing Massachusetts in its struggle. They agreed to boycott all British goods and to stop exporting goods to Britain until the intolerable acts were repealed. The delegates also urged each colony to set up and train its own militia. A militia is an army of citizens who serve as soldiers during an emergency. Before leaving Philadelphia, the delegates agreed to meet again in May 1775. Little did they know that before then, an incident in Massachusetts would change the fate of the colonies forever. So to finish up here, you'll answer question 14 in this paragraph. What did the delegates at the meeting agree to do? And question 15, what is a militia? And that's the end of our Read Aloud video for CR14, the Boston Tea Party. Thanks for listening.